Hello and welcome back to the Triathlon Debs YouTube channel. I'm Triathlon Debs. I'm a working, middle-aged triathlon mum. I've been doing triathlons for over 13 years and I've done over 50 multi-sport events. I've done lots of sprint and Olympic distance triathlons and 5 half Ironman distance races. Today I'm going to talk you through my top 5 winter triathlon training tips that will help you maximise your winter training and get you to the start line for the beginning of next season, rearing to go. My top tip number 1 for winter training is to mix up your indoor and outdoor riding. The Zwift is a great way of guaranteeing a good quality ride whatever the weather's doing outside. They have a huge range of ready-made training plans to draw from. If you're wanting to get long rides done, you can either enter some races or you could set up some group rides with your friends to make the sessions a bit less monotonous. Although Zwifting can be really good for getting a ride in no matter what the weather is, I think you also do need to mix it up and get out and about still. I think Zwift doesn't always offer the most reliable data on power, so it can make you feel like you're ahead of where you really are. And if you're not careful, you lose your bike handling skills if you're not out over winter. The only decent bike that I have is my TT bike, which is as much use as a chocolate teapot in winter. The slightest rain, wind or ice and I can't get out on it safely. So what I have done is just invested in a really cheap and cheerful cyclocross bike. There are loads of trails out and about. I'd recommend using something like disused railway lines. They're generally quite flat and non-technical. Try and avoid doing technical routes unless you're used to mountain biking. Otherwise, if you're not careful, you'll end up crashing and injuring yourself. What I would say though is just prepared to get muddy. Top tip number 2 is make sure that you're dressed appropriately for the weather. Don't just put on all the layers that you've got when it's cold outside. As a rule of thumb, what you need to do is be a bit cold when you start off the ride. Think about what gloves you've got on. If you've got really thick gloves on, you're not going to be able to change gear and use the brakes safely. It's worth investing in a good pair of overshoes. These DHB ones, they were less than 20 quid and they do a great job of keeping the wind out and the rain out on those cold days and helping keep your extremities warm. The best way to make sure that you dress for the weather is to use a layering system. Use lots of multiple thin layers that you can take off or add on again depending on how the weather varies during your ride. In terms of using a layering system, I wear a pair of cycling shorts underneath a pair of thick, good quality leggings. I wear a base layer, followed by just a short sleeve cycling jersey, and then a waterproof over the top. This one's quite nice because the arms actually zip off on this, so it can just be worn as a gilet. Another option, if it's just nudging into the warmer or colder weather, is to wear leg warmers and arm warmers. These are a really great option, particularly if it's sort of, say, really cold when you first go out on your ride, but you know that it's going to warm up as you go along. And when you warm up, you can either roll them down, or again, you can take them off completely and stuff them in your back pocket. Keeping your head warm is also really important, as you lose a third of your body heat through your head. You can use thick hats underneath your helmet on really cold days, but I quite like using the buff system with it because they're lightweight, but they do the job of keeping your head warm. But also if you get too hot, you can whip them off quite easily. Either put it around your wrist, stuff it in your back pocket, or keep it around your neck. Fingers can be a little bit of a tricky one. When it's really cold, what I tend to do is use a really thin pair of liner gloves with a pair of windbreaker gloves over the top of them. This can really help when it's wet and windy, just keeping the chill out. What you need to be able to do on cold winter rides is make sure that you can still change gear and brake safely. If you use really thick gloves, then you lose that dexterity and it puts you at more risk of having a crash. It's important to think about what sunglasses you're going to wear when you're riding in winter. If it's really bright, which it quite often is in winter mornings, you might want your normal sunglasses on, but also if it's overcast or raining, a pair of just clear sunglasses works really well for keeping any splash out of your eyes. Top tip number 3 is battling bugs. Make sure that you're washing your hands regularly, particularly before eating and drinking, and if you're outside in any public hotspots, then make sure you use alcohol gel regularly. Where possible, avoid being indoors with family and friends that are ill. Don't push it if you do get ill, take some time off to recover properly with it. If you go back too early, you're probably only going to end up making yourself worse and having a long period of training off. You've got nothing to gain by doing this, and what you don't want to do is to have to avoid really long periods of training. The best training you're going to get is consistent training this winter. Make sure you get your flu and COVID jabs if you do them. Thank you, Nurse Kerry. Give yourself a head start by taking a multivitamin every day. Thank you. Make sure that you're eating plenty of fruit and vegetables so you're getting all your antioxidants in. Thank you. Top tip number 4 is to mix up your training over winter. Make sure you use your winter training to get a variety of strength and conditioning exercises in, and to do things like Pilates and yoga so you can work on your core strength and minimise the risk of injury next season. Winter can also be a really good time to try out a few different sports, to work out a few different muscles and just give your body a bit of variety so you're not getting too bored. Last year I took up skiing and that was a great whole body workout for me. Just make sure that you don't pick up any injuries. Also use winter to mix up the intensity of your exercises. You can't expect to be doing hard power efforts all year round. Your body's just going to get fatigued and high risk of getting injury. What you can do over winter is do some lower intensity, long steady workouts, so you're still getting the volume in but allowing your body time to recover in between. Top tip number 5 is get organised and get motivated. Decide what your A races are going to be early on in winter and enter them. You're much more likely to write a training plan and stick to it if you know when your races are going to be. To be able to plan your winter training appropriately, you need to know what kind of distances you're going to be racing over and at what time in the year you need to be peaking. I'll do another vlog in a few weeks on training plans, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Joining a tri club can be really helpful to motivate you over those cold, dark, wet winter months. I think if you plan to go out with a group of you, you're much less likely to bail. Going out in a group also makes the time go faster, it's a lot more sociable, you get distracted, and winter is the perfect time for popping in a coffee stop for those long rides. Paying attention to the weather forecast is really important during winter training. You need to look at the weather before you're planning your session. If it's going to be cold, wet or icy, you're not going to be going out on those long bike rides. It's not going to be safe to do it, you're much more likely to get injured. So what you might want to do if the weather forecast is really rubbish is perhaps swap one of those outdoor rides, maybe for an indoor Zwift session, a weight training session, or maybe a run session where it is a bit more manageable to go out in the rubbish weather. Write out either a weekly or monthly training plan and then commit to it. If you've got something down in pen and paper or on a computer, again, you're much more likely to follow it. Maybe if you're sharing it with other people, perhaps with another, friends in the tri club or on Facebook, again, you're going to be held accountable because you said you're going to do it. Or better still, do a vlog, put it out there to everybody what you're going to be doing, and then film it, and then you've got no excuse for not actually doing it. So that's my top 5 winter training tips. Make sure that you do a mixture of indoor and outdoor riding. Make sure that you dress correctly for the weather. Where you can, battle the bugs. Make sure that you mix up your training and you've got a mixture of some strength and conditioning stuff in there. Get organised, get motivated for the season. Thanks very much for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And watch out shortly for some more upcoming episodes on my winter training programme. See you later.